Let me tell you something that will shift how you carry yourself forever. A wise person never reveals everything about himself. Not because he's fake. Not because he's deceitful. But because he understands the power of silence, strategy, and self-preservation. In a world obsessed with oversharing, the man who chooses restraint stands apart. You see, every time you open your mouth, you're either building your power or giving it away. And the truly wise? They never let the world see their entire hand. Because the moment you expose everything, you give others the map to manipulate you. Silence is often misunderstood in a world addicted to noise. We live in an age where people rush to speak, post, argue, and assert. Everyone wants to be heard. But what most don't realize is that silence, intentional, measured, and controlled silence, is not emptiness. It is power. It is the space where wisdom lives and strength builds. A wise person understands that silence is not the absence of action. It's the presence of control. When you're silent, you force the world to guess. You deny others access to your thoughts, your emotions, and your strategy. That guesswork puts them at a disadvantage. They start to fill the gaps with their own projections, assumptions, and insecurities. Meanwhile, you're in control. Silence keeps your inner world protected. It gives you time to think, observe, and make calculated decisions without pressure. While others react emotionally and impulsively, you remain grounded, unaffected, and in command. Silence also exposes others. In conversations or negotiations, people will often rush to fill the silence. That's when they start revealing their own intentions, weaknesses, and strategies, because silence makes them uncomfortable. They equate silence with uncertainty, so they overcompensate. But the wise man knows this and uses it to his advantage. He speaks less so he can hear more. He allows others to reveal their hands while he holds his close to his chest. There's a profound discipline in keeping quiet when your emotions are loud. It takes real strength not to react when someone disrespects you, doubts you, or tries to provoke you. Silence in those moments isn't weakness, it's self-mastery. It means you're not giving away your power to people who haven't earned your truth. You're not letting someone else's chaos disturb your inner peace. You're teaching them that your energy is not easy to access, and your reactions are not for sale. On a deeper level, silence is also how transformation happens. Real growth doesn't shout. It's silent. It's that 5 a.m. grind. That unread book being studied. That quiet sacrifice that no one sees. The world loves to applaud the noise, the showy wins and the flashy results, but it's silence that builds the foundation. Every successful person you admire had long seasons of silence where they were grinding, learning, failing, and getting back up without applause. They weren't loud about it. They were focused. There's an old proverb, even a fool is thought wise if he remains silent. That's not just about image, it's about potential. Silence creates mystery. It gives you the flexibility to grow, evolve, and strike without interference or sabotage. People can't attack what they can't predict. They can't destroy what they can't define. So while the world gets louder and more distracted, the wise become quieter, sharper, and more deliberate. They don't waste words trying to prove who they are. They let their silence shape their presence and their actions prove their worth. Because silence isn't empty. It's full of awareness, intent, and untouchable strength. Your next move should be private because nothing invites sabotage, criticism, or unnecessary pressure like prematurely revealing your plans. When you speak about your goals too soon, you unintentionally open the door to doubt, envy, and resistance. People begin to analyze your intentions, judge your capabilities, and even worse, some actively work against you. Not everyone wants to see you win. In fact, some are silently waiting for you to fail, just so they can feel better about staying where they are. By keeping your next move to yourself, you preserve its purity, power, and purpose. Privacy creates protection. When your dreams are hidden, they are harder to destroy. There's a quiet confidence in working behind the scenes. You don't owe the world a status update. You don't need to convince anyone of your potential. You just need to build, in silence. This isn't about being secretive for the sake of ego. It's about being strategic. You're not hiding because you're afraid. You're hiding because you're focused. Because you understand that energy leaks when you're busy talking instead of doing. Every explanation you offer drains momentum from your mission. In silence, your execution becomes your voice. Your success becomes your statement. Let them see the result, not the roadmap. Because when people see the path you're taking, some will copy it, some will block it, and others will laugh at it. But when all they see is the result, they're forced to respect it, even if they don't understand how you got there. That confusion is your armor. That mystery gives you time and space to operate without interference. Even the most disciplined individuals can be thrown off track when exposed to unnecessary feedback. When you announce your goals prematurely, you open yourself up to opinions that can dilute your vision. Someone might tell you it's impossible. Someone else might remind you of every past failure. Others might smile to your face while secretly hoping you fall short. And suddenly, your focus shifts from execution to validation. Your drive weakens. Your vision blurs. That's why your next move must be yours alone, at least until it's complete. There's also something sacred about the unseen hustle. You wake up early, grind in silence, and go to bed knowing you're building something no one else can see, but you can feel it growing. That's the real power. Not in recognition, but in progression. Let the world sleep on you. Let them think you're idle, lost, or stagnant. When the time is right, your results will do all the talking, and they'll speak louder than any announcement ever could. Remember, your future doesn't need applause. It needs discipline, patience, and privacy. So protect your goals the way a warrior protects his weapon, hidden, sharp, and ready. Let your success catch them by surprise. Let your next move be a masterpiece revealed only when complete. Because when no one sees you coming, no one can stop you. Pain must be processed, not publicized, because not everyone deserves access to the most vulnerable parts of your soul. In a culture where oversharing is mistaken for authenticity, people often broadcast their wounds in hopes of sympathy, validation, or connection. But wisdom understands that some things are too sacred to be placed on public display. Your pain is one of them. It is meant to be felt, examined, and healed, not packaged for the opinions or reactions of others. Because while a few may care, most will forget, and some will even weaponize what you reveal. When you rush to share your pain with the world, you expose yourself to people who neither understand it nor respect it. Some will offer fake comfort, others will gossip about it, and a few may even use it against you when the time is right. That's not healing, that's exposure. And every time you open a wound for the wrong audience, it gets infected by judgment, comparison, or pity. You begin to see yourself through the lens of others instead of taking the time to understand your own emotions fully. Pain is deeply personal. It's a signal that something within you has been shaken, wounded, or challenged. It demands your presence, your stillness, your honesty. It doesn't need to be shouted into the void of social media or announced in every conversation. It needs solitude. It needs reflection. It needs the kind of quiet work that transforms suffering into strength. This is not about silence rooted in shame, it's about silence rooted in self-respect. You're not hiding your pain because it's weakness. You're choosing not to display it because it's still being processed, and healing is not a performance. Real healing happens in private. When you're honest with yourself, when you write through your emotions, when you cry in the dark, when you sit in silence and confront the truth of what you've experienced. That's where growth is born. Not in applause, not in sympathy, but in the quiet, unglamorous moments where you choose not to let pain define you. You learn how to carry it without letting it weigh you down. You discover how to build from it instead of being broken by it. There is power in discretion. When you keep your pain close, you protect the space necessary to transform it into purpose. You guard it from the shallow interpretations of others and keep it in the hands of someone who can actually heal it, you. You begin to realize that your suffering doesn't make you a victim, it makes you human. And the more privately you face it, the more profoundly you grow from it. Not every scar needs to be shown. Some are meant to be felt deeply, understood fully, and carried quietly as proof that you survived what others never even saw. So process your pain. Learn from it. Grow through it. But don't feel the need to publicize it. The world doesn't need to understand your wounds for them to be real. Only you do. True strength is hidden, not flaunted, because real power doesn't need validation. In a world where loudness is often mistaken for confidence, where people show off their achievements, muscles, money, and knowledge to prove something to others, those who are truly strong operate in silence. They don't need to dominate the room with their voice or display their success like a trophy. They carry themselves with quiet certainty, not because they lack power, but because they understand that the strongest force is often the one you don't see coming. When someone flaunts their strength, it usually comes from insecurity, not confidence. They need others to notice them, applaud them, or fear them. But that desire to be seen is also a vulnerability. It gives others a map of your assets, your ego, and your triggers. And when people know what matters most to you, they know exactly how to attack you. The person who shows off their strength is easier to manipulate than the one who keeps it hidden. Real strength isn't loud because it's rooted in self-awareness and control. It's the man who can destroy you, but chooses not to. It's the woman who can crush the competition, but doesn't feel the need to announce it. It's the individual who knows their capabilities and doesn't have to prove it to anyone. They let their actions speak when the moment calls for it, and until then, they wait, they watch, they work. There's also a psychological advantage to being underestimated. When others think you're average, when they don't know what you're capable of, they drop their guard. They expose their true intentions. And in that space of underestimation, you can move freely and powerfully. The moment you reveal your full strength, you lose the element of surprise. That's why the wisest people don't showcase their entire skill set. They reveal only what's necessary, and often, that's very little. Keeping your strength hidden is not about deception. It's about discipline. You don't need to lift your voice to make an impact. You don't need to outshine others to feel valuable. True strength is choosing restraint over reaction, calm over chaos, stillness over show. It's knowing that your value doesn't increase just because someone else notices it. Lions don't roar to prove they're lions. They stay quiet, they observe, and when it's time, they strike with precision. That's what real strength looks like. It's not in the roar, it's in the readiness. The ability to hold back, to move wisely, to act only when necessary. You don't need to shout your power to the world. You just need to know you have it. And when the time comes, you use it, not to impress, but to make a difference. Because true strength isn't about being seen. It's about being effective. Oversharing leads to manipulation because when you reveal too much about yourself, you hand people a blueprint to your mind, your emotions, and your vulnerabilities. In a world where not everyone has good intentions, the more people know about your fears, desires, past mistakes, and private thoughts, the more they can use that information to control you. What feels like a moment of connection can quickly become a strategic disadvantage, especially when that personal information ends up in the wrong hands. Emotional openness is powerful, but when it's unfiltered and unguarded, it becomes a weakness instead of a strength. People who overshare often do so to feel understood, validated, or liked. But the truth is, not everyone listening to you is doing so with compassion. Some are listening with calculation. They take mental notes, looking for patterns they can exploit later. Maybe you shared a story about your insecurities. Maybe you mentioned a traumatic experience or a deep fear. To someone manipulative, that's leverage. They now know what buttons to press when they want to influence you, guilt you, or destabilize your confidence. Manipulators thrive on access. They don't need to be smarter than you, they just need to know more about you than you know about them. And when you talk too much, especially about personal matters, you create a one-sided exposure. You become transparent, while they remain a mystery. That imbalance is dangerous. They can adjust their behavior to gain your trust, mirror your values, or create emotional dependencies, all because you gave them the instruction manual. Oversharing also dilutes your boundaries. The more you talk, the more you risk saying things that were never meant to be shared. This blurs the lines between genuine connection and emotional dumping. It can create false intimacy, where someone appears close to you simply because they know a lot about you, not because they earned your trust or invested in your well-being. And when the relationship turns, that same person can twist your words, reveal your secrets, or shame you with the very stories you once trusted them with. There's wisdom in restraint. Not everyone needs to know your struggles, your plans, your family issues, or your past. Privacy is protection. It gives you room to process, grow, and evolve without being boxed into a narrative others might create for you. The strongest people aren't the ones who reveal everything, they're the ones who know what to reveal, when, and to whom. They speak with intention, not desperation. Keeping parts of yourself private doesn't make you cold, it makes you smart. It doesn't mean you're hiding, it means you're protecting what's sacred. You're choosing not to hand out emotional weapons to people who might turn around and use them against you. In a world that constantly pressures you to share, there is quiet power in knowing that your life, your pain, and your truth are not for everyone. Oversharing feels honest, but it can be reckless. And in the wrong moment, it can cost you more than you ever intended. Wisdom lies in restraint, not noise, because the truly wise understand that power doesn't come from being the loudest in the room, it comes from being the most intentional. In a world that rewards attention and celebrates constant expression, restraint is often mistaken for weakness. But those who know the value of silence, who can hold back their words, reactions, and judgments, carry a deeper form of strength. They don't waste energy proving themselves to others. They move with calm precision, choosing when to speak, when to act, and when to walk away. That level of discipline is not born from passivity, it's born from mastery. Noise is reactive. It's fueled by ego, insecurity, and the need to be seen. People who constantly speak without thinking, who broadcast every thought or emotion, often reveal more than they intend. They expose their fears, their ignorance, and their need for approval. And in doing so, they lose control of the conversation, and often, the respect of others. Noise might get attention, but it rarely earns admiration. It's the person who speaks less but says more who commands the room. It's the one who listens carefully and responds only when necessary who is remembered. Restraint is not silence for the sake of hiding. It's silence with a purpose. It's the ability to observe without reacting. To know the truth but not always feel the need to correct others. To be provoked and still maintain your center. That's wisdom. Because when you're reactive, others can manipulate your emotions. But when you have restraint, you're in control, not just of your words, but of your mind, your image, and your influence. The wise person knows that not every battle is worth fighting. Not every opinion deserves a response. Not every insult requires a comeback. They understand the value of choosing their moments. They don't speak to be heard, they speak to be effective. And often, that means speaking less. In restraint, there is clarity. In noise, there is confusion. When you hold back, you create space to think, to feel, to evaluate. You avoid the kind of impulsive reactions that ruin reputations, relationships, and opportunities. There's also dignity in not needing to be right all the time. Wisdom isn't about winning arguments, it's about understanding when to walk away from them. It's about realizing that sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is say nothing at all. Because silence, when used wisely, speaks volumes. It shows confidence, patience, and maturity. It tells the world that you're not easily shaken, that you don't operate on emotion, and that you're driven by purpose, not impulse. In restraint, you preserve your energy. You protect your peace. You become unpredictable, and therefore, powerful. You stop letting the world pull you in every direction and start choosing your own. The world may reward noise in the short term, but in the long game, it is restraint that builds legacy. It's the quiet minds that often shape the loudest changes. So remember this, in a world that constantly demands you to expose, explain, and express everything, choose the higher path. A wise person doesn't hide out of fear, but out of understanding. He knows that not everything sacred should be shared. His next move remains private, his pain is processed in silence, and his strength is quiet, not flaunted. Because what is concealed is often what protects you. What is guarded is what grows. And what is reserved is what remains respected. In the end, wisdom isn't about how much you show, it's about how well you know what not to. Speak less. Reveal less. Move smarter. Because sometimes, your greatest advantage is what no one else can see.